So apparently Joao Felix was out of Chelsea now. Mateo Kovacic's new contract is not there, is not existent. Chelsea aren't interested in giving it to him. There is under 20 World Cup drama at Chelsea FC because certain players aren't allowed to go and certain players are. Oh, and a former youth graduate is now going to get Chelsea equivalent to £12.5 million. Let's get into it. Love it. Welcome to the Kavkas View, and for me, today's video is a very interesting one. I don't need to talk about the generic stuff that we've been talking about recently, and I don't need to get all hyper emotional, but it's one where I'm going to be a little bit more passionate than I normally am, because I'm starting to hear some stuff that's coming out that's getting me a little bit annoyed. But we need to talk about one thing. You lot doing your admin duties. Number one, hit the like button. Number two, we're aiming for 1,000 likes, so you please do it now before you forget. Number three, follow me on Instagram in the pinned comment below because that's the best way to interact with me. DM me with football related questions and I usually respond very swiftly. And finally, why are you not subscribed just yet? Let's get into it. So reports in Spain are coming out and these reports are a little bit annoying, right? So since Joao Felix has joined, all we've heard is how much he loves London, how much Joao Felix is going to try to push through a move to become a permanent Chelsea player. Then we started seeing that Todd Bowley and co think this guy is amazing. He's taking all the statistical outputs on all the algorithms that they have going in the back. He is coming out on top. But yet, we get Atletico Madrid coming out with, oh, we don't want him basically back. That's what's coming out. Chelsea are basically leaking that they want him at all costs, apart from if the fee is ridiculous and enormous. And all of a sudden, now we've got a new article coming out from Spain. And the article suggests that Joao Felix wants to stay in England, but it doesn't necessarily have to be Chelsea. And the reality here is, now this player is starting to get hate. And I don't understand why. Firstly, Joao Felix has done everything in his power to come across as proper Chelsea. Because the reality is, since he's joined, not only has he been doing stuff like this when he scores goals, not only has he been tapping the bag, not only has he been putting pictures on Instagram consistently, not only has he said he loves London, not only has he been proudly talking about how much he's passionate about playing for this club, people want more. People have been criticizing him and they want more. The reality is he's not a Chelsea boy. He weren't born a Chelsea fan. So if he wants to move to another club that's got Champions League football, I won't hold that against him because he doesn't owe us nothing. The same way as if we don't want to sign him, we don't owe him nothing. But at the same time, I think it's very unfair to be now calling him names and absolutely bombarding him with hate because that's what people are doing. For me, Joao Felix stays next year. I think he comes back on loan with an option to buy and he shines out to the point where Chelsea finally sign him. I think he's a good player. I think a lot of people are hard on him and the reason is because they've convinced themselves that it's either him or Mason Mount. And a lot of people that love Mason Mount, for some reason hate Joao Felix. I don't understand it. So for me, we keep him. This story for me is just stirring the pot by the Spanish press. That's my personal opinion. Move on to the next. I put out a poll today on my community page. If you don't know about it, get to know about it because I'm starting to be a lot more consistent with it. It's a great way of interacting with you guys about Mateo Kovacic. Look, the reports are coming out from The Guardian that Chelsea aren't even close to agreeing a new deal with Mateo Kovacic. And one of the reasons is because the player wants to move on. The club want to move on. It's going to be a healthy breakup. It's like one of those breakups that's run its course. The relationship is done. Both sides want to move on and do other things. And the reality is, this is what's happening at Chelsea with Mateo Kovacic. Mateo is attracting interest from Manchester United, Manchester City, and Bayern Munich because Tuchel, we know how much he loves him. Chelsea are willing to ask for a fee and are wanting to move him on. How do I feel about all of this? For me, this is best for business. I think Mateo Kovacic for a while now has been very inconsistent at Chelsea to the point where I've been getting frustrated. The reason being is I can see the abundance of talent this man has. I just want some consistency and more importantly, I just want some productivity in the final third when he gets in there. I'm not talking about goals and assists. I'm talking about consistency of a weight of pass. Mateo has been very frustrating. He doesn't get his head up. He overdoes it with the dribble. But more importantly, he just does not contribute enough whether he's a defensive midfielder or an offensive midfielder because people run off him easily and he doesn't finish in the final third with a weighted pass. So I'm very confused with what he is. Don't get me wrong, I think he's fantastic in the sense that if he's a player coming off your bench, you've got one heck of a midfield. I do think sometimes it's good to freshen up. Jorginho has moved on. He's one that I would have kept, but you can't reject 12 million when there's only 6 months left on his deal. So that's good business. We move on Mateo, we reap a profit. If we get anything higher than £8 million, it's deemed a profit on our books. I think we can get roughly around 20 to 25 million pounds from Mateo Kovacic. Hopefully we get that. I don't know whether he's going to stay in England, but I've got a good feeling he's going to be going to Bayern Munich. That's just my personal view. Don't shoot me for it. Todd Boehly and co have done something that's been very interesting. So today, we always say as fan base, you know, or even as fans, owners don't get us. They don't appreciate us. They use us. They exploit us for money. We're just a consumer to them. Well, the ownership group did something today that, in my opinion, is very interesting. Look, we've had a horrible campaign. We can't hide behind that. And cost of living is a real thing, right? Everything's going up. I'm going to Sainsbury's, Aldi's. This isn't sponsored before any of you ask me. I wish I was sponsored by one of them. But the fees are going crazy. Grapes aren't priced like grapes anymore. They're moving mad. Everything is in. So the fact that football fans have to chip out more money for tickets is ridiculous. So the club have decided to stagnate the increase on the price of the general season ticket. And for me, this is a nice thing to do because the casual match going fan most probably does not want to spend another £100 extra on their season ticket or whatever it would. So the reality that the club said, you know what, we'll keep the same prices, you keep your same seat. And this is due to the fact that we haven't been performing well this year. So it's like a thank you for staying with us. And more importantly, we understand how life is getting tough. I think stuff like this is important. Stuff like this bridges the gap between the board, the fans, and it's a goodwill gesture. I think the fans, us, even the people that don't go to games, because I consider myself as someone that doesn't go to game, going to Stamford Bridge once a year is not going to a game. I think it shows me that the club cares a little bit about us. Don't get me twisted, right? They know what they're doing here. They're trying to buy goodwill. But I'd rather they do this than not do this. So the reality is, hats off to Todd Boehly and co. Well done. I'm really appreciating your effort on this scale. Speaking of money, I think it's very important that we start considering the next stage of Chelsea generating revenue, right? Look, this summer's going to be drastically important for us selling players. One of the reasons it's going to be super important of us selling players is due to meeting FFP regulation, meeting the requirements that are set by UEFA for us to compete in Europe. We ain't competing in Europe next year, so if we breach FFP, we can't get kicked out of Europe. Maybe the season after, but we'll deal with that when it comes. But we sold Mark Guehi, I think it was, not last season, was the season before, and Mark Guehi left the club for roughly, I think it was £20 million at that moment in time. And there were add-ons that were triggered that could go and push the move up to 25 million. And you know what? He's been doing it. But what Marina Garaskaya and Petr Cech included in the contract is if Mark Guehi gets sent to another club for a fee, Chelsea get 25% of that fee. This is known as a sell-on value. And in this case right now, Arsenal are being heavily linked with Mark Guehi. Arsenal have been chasing this player and apparently he's going to be going there for £50 million potentially. Whatever sum goes of that 50 million, 12.5 million will be coming to Chelsea. This is excellent utilization of our academy. The reality is not every kid is going to make it at Chelsea. And a lot of people struggle to understand the logic in what I'm saying. Because the reality is if we want to compete for trophies, you can't promote every little kid that comes through and say, you know what, if we give him 2 years time, 3 years time. No, Mark Guehi went on loan to Swansea, had a very good loan, and when he returned, it was deemed that he wasn't good enough. It was deemed that he wasn't ready to play for Chelsea, and 25 million potentially was too big of a deal to reject. And you know what? 2 years on, we're starting to see that maybe they were right. Because the reality is, in my eyes, Badiashile is a better player than Mark Guehi at this moment in time. I think Levi Colwill potentially is a better player than Mark Guehi at this time. And more importantly, Wesley Fofana is a better player than him. We've got Thiago Silva. Yes, we've invested in Koulibaly, but Koulibaly was more of a like-for-like replacement with Rudiger. We got that wrong. We are generating money. And I think this is a very smart piece of business by Marina before she left. I really hope that we utilize this in the future. A lot of people say buyback clauses. I think the problem with a buyback clause is the player needs to want to come back. And the reality is 9 out of 10 times when a player goes somewhere and he flourishes, he's only coming back if he's getting first team commitment. And we can't always promise people. Like in this case, if we had a buyback option on Mark Guehi, he wouldn't come back to us because he's not good enough to start. Or maybe not even good enough to bench because we would have a Levi Colwill or a Badiashile on the bench. So it's interesting, so I'm always one for the sell-on fee. I love that one. And finally, we need to talk about the Under-20 World Cup because there's been a lot of controversy surrounding that tournament, right? there have been certain players not allowed to go, certain players have been allowed. And I'm going to tell you the players from Chelsea's standpoint that you guys can keep an eye on if you're interested in that tournament. I am going to be keeping an eye on it, partly due to the fact that I love seeing the next up-and-coming talent of next year. Sometimes I find youth football more entertaining than first team football. You get a little bit of individualism, you get to see the stars of tomorrow, and more importantly, I just feel like it means more to them. It's really sad that maybe because they're younger and they're trying to prove themselves, they're hungrier. But from the England standpoint, the Chelsea players that are going to be going are Carney Chukwuemeka, Harvey Vale, Humphrey, that's on loan, and Sherman Lowe. I'm not going to pretend I know who Sherman Lowe is, but the other three I've seen play. We've even seen Humphrey play, I think, this year for Chelsea under Graham Potter. For the US, Salina's going to be going. That's going to be a great opportunity for us to see whether he's ready to come in next year and potentially stake a claim if Kepa continues to make mistakes every now and then. Then we've got Italy and Casadei going, which I think is going to be a great experience for us to see what he's all about. He's having a very good loan at Reading at this moment in time. Brazil are taking André Santos, as we already knew they would. Ecuador are taking our new wonder kid for £15 million, and he's 15 years old. So he's at the Under-20 World Cup. I think he's just turned 16 if I'm not mistaken. So he's 16 years old now. That's going to be a first opportunity for some of us to see him, especially me. I haven't seen anything of him. I don't even know what position he plays in. So Perez is going to be someone I'm going to be looking out for. And finally, one player that's not allowed to go is Lewis Hall. And this has caused a massive controversy, especially on Chelsea Twitter. Chelsea Twitter love to complain. Chelsea Twitter is a place that you can say the black kit of Chelsea in 2004 is lovely. Someone's going to say, how dare you say that? The white kit of 2005 is the alternative kit of 1987 is better. You're so disrespectful. And literally, we can't agree on anything. An opinion won't be accepted. Like, you can't have an opinion on something without triggering someone. So in this case, what do you think is going to happen when Chelsea don't let Lewis Hall go? So the reason that Chelsea apparently haven't let Lewis Hall go is because Ben Chilwell's out for the rest of the season. He can play, but doesn't want to be risked by Frank Lampard because he's got a little niggly injury that he's just going to be rested. What's his name? The Cucurella? Cucurella is not going to be playing. Cucurella apparently is injured as well. So this gives an opportunity for either Aspie at left back or Frank Lampard's decided, oh, let's give Lewis Hall a chance. Why not? And this, for me now, matters. Because Lewis Hall had a good few games for Chelsea. He broke into the side, he looked very promising. Graham Potter gave him a lot of game time. And in the long run, this was actually very nice. This was developing him nicely, but we could see he wasn't ready. He was 17 years old, for crying out loud. So for me now, if he gets reintegrated for the last 4 games, he plays against Nottingham Forest, he plays against Man United, Newcastle and City, this will just enable him to take the next stage of his development. This will allow Maurizio Pochettino to see what he's all about and see whether he likes him for next season. So for me, this is a win-win. Look, it's all well and good going to the Under-20 World Cup. He most probably would have been with his friends. He most probably would have had a great time. He would have loved it. And most probably could have had a chance of winning an Under-20 World Cup. But the reality is, for the long term of his Chelsea career, being in and around the first team and getting actual appearances is the best thing for him. He puts in a couple good performances and next season he's genuinely a serious contender to be in this squad again. And not even just go on loan, but actually stay under Maurizio Pochettino. So for me, this is a no-brainer. Would I want to go if I'm him? Yes. But Chelsea pay his wages. And the reality is they're within their right to say if he can go or if he can't go. It's up to their approval. So guys, this was a little bit of a long video today. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts. I know that I spoke a lot here today, but I know you lot enjoyed it, especially if you made it this far. So you better be hitting that like button. We're aiming for 1,000. So come on, in the comments below, let me know what number you guys are. And so if you're like number 75, put 75. And I will definitely know you lot are the real ones because you made it this far. Peace out. I'm out.